we're not nurturing I would say in a consistent way. That's the most generous way that I can put it. So I want to give you some strategies on how that actually looks. So the topic of today is the long-term nurture, provide value first. So long-term nurture, provide value first. So what that looks like is, let's just go through an example real quick. We may be very heavy on direct mail. We send out thousands of pieces of mail every single month. We may be very heavy in networking. We may be going to every single happy hour that ever existed, known to man. So that might be you. You might be the person that's generating a ton of Facebook leads, or someone that's doing YouTube and generating a massive amount of leads as well. So Franco's on the channel. He was on our call today. So he's someone that is generating massive amounts of leads. I'm not going to give away his numbers or so, but he generates a lot of leads every single month that come to him, right? But the reality is, very few people, percentage-wise, very few people are ready to transact that moment at that point in time, ready to get down to business. Very few people. Now, the different channel, whether that's Facebook ads or YouTube ads, Google ads, they all have different conversion rates. We're not going to talk about that today. But what they all have in common is we need to follow up. Even if someone's ready, willing, and able to purchase very, very soon, if they don't hear back from you, then chances are that you've been forgotten. Because remember, there's over 2 million active real estate licenses out there in the country right now. So you're one level removed from a real estate agent. It doesn't matter what family that you're in. So long-term nurture, this is really where I ask for a bit of participation, and it's okay one way or the other, but this is going to help us formulate a strategy and a game plan that we'll develop here in about 2 seconds. In the last month, would you say, let's just go with the last month. In the last month, has your database heard from you? Whether that's a call, that's an email, that's a text, yes or no in the chat. In the last month, has your entire database, and I say entire, I'm not saying just following up with a few people, has your entire database heard from you? So drop a yes if in the last month that is you, drop a no if that is you as well. So we have yes, no, 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 yes, 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 no. Awesome. So as I continue rolling in, the reason that I ask that is because regardless if someone is a long-term nurture, a mid-term nurture, or a ready to transact now nurture, there shouldn't be a reason that they don't hear from us within 30 days. And we'll talk about the different ways that you can do that in a very discreet way, but a very memorable way. I know those are those are almost polar opposites, but you'll see how it gets tied together in here very shortly. So you can see that we have about a 50-50 breakdown, right? So for those of you that said yes, what type of communication tool did you use? Was it email blast? Was it text blast? Was it calling? So again, in the last 30 days, how many of you have followed up with your entire database, and in what manner? Was it email based? Was it text based? Was it call? Was it pop buys? Was it an event? Was it inviting everyone to coffee? What was that? Email based, email. I suspect that a lot of you are going to say email. So as you continue going down that route, that is a strategy that you can absolutely deploy at scale. It's very free to do. It's a very, I would say, effective way to reach the masses, but not the most effective way to actually get a hold of someone. And I'll talk about that here shortly. So I'll first start off with what do we send or what type of messaging do we want to convey? And then we'll go into the avenues of how to accomplish that. When I say reaching out to your database, I'm not necessarily saying, hey, just calling up to catch up and tell me your life story. That's not the way that I teach it. That's not the way that I personally like to communicate altogether, especially as we go more and more into different ways of reaching people. There's other ways that are a bit more effective, that will avoid people blocking you or ignoring your calls. So what am I talking about with what messaging to send out? When I say provide value first, I mean just that. Provide value first. Provide information that's going to be helpful to your avatar, whether you're primarily marketing to buyers or primarily marketing to sellers. So essentially, if you're working with buyers, there's certain information that you can be conveying. If you're working with sellers primarily or want to work with sellers primarily, there's certain messaging that you can convey to them. So leading with value first, I know a lot of you, and myself included, sometimes follow Gary Vee, the whole jab, jab, hook concept of give, 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 and then eventually ask. It's the same mentality. It's the same teaching, if you will, but in the real estate lens. So what is going to be valuable to sellers or homeowners is effectively who you're speaking with. That is information about property taxes, how to reduce those. In some states, there's higher property taxes than others. Information about homestead exemptions and how to actually apply that so you save money and protect yourself from certain liabilities. Every single state has different types of homestead exemptions. Information about home improvement or home maintenance, things, renovations that actually make sense for those that are looking to sell in the near future. Information about real estate investing. So I'm giving you different categories, different topics for you to latch onto that's going to be meaningful to a homeowner, because ultimately those are the ones that become sellers. One of the things that's really been working from our end right now has been information about real estate investing, because there's a ton of capital out there that, believe it or not, there's a ton of capital out there from individuals that are homeowners right now that want to deploy that capital. They just don't know in which avenue. Now, you're not becoming a financial analyst by any stretch of the imagination or a financial planner, but there are certain things that you know about real estate from your day-to-day, from your working with real estate investors, from you working in the industry, that's going to be valuable to individuals that are near you, right? So we're talking about what to send. We're talking about the content. We're talking of how to speak the language of homeowners and sellers. Now, from the buyer side, if that's who you primarily work with, then you're talking about information on how to buy a house. You're sharing information on how to improve your credit. You're sharing information on how to qualify for a loan. You're sharing information on tips to avoid the wrong house. You're sharing information on how to appropriately analyze a home, if you will. That came out weird, but how to select the home that's ideal for you. So information that is valuable to a home buyer, someone that is looking to purchase. Now, there's a lot of other subsets. There's a lot of other things that we can get into. We could talk about foreclosures. We can talk about first-time buyers versus move-up buyers. You can go into your niches, but for all intents and purposes, someone's either going to buy or someone's either going to sell. That's it, right? So let's not complicate it beyond that. There's a lot of you mentioned email. It's very easy to start thinking about, I want to get this email drip out for my foreclosures that have never thought about foreclosure, and now they all of a sudden got an email. Well, that's a very niche audience. If you simplify it to just those two categories, the buyers and sellers, and have a drip for those two, you've won. Right? Is this making sense? Let me know if there's any questions up until now. We're going to get into the tactical part right now. What's most important is to simplify your message to buyers and simplify your message to sellers. If you don't feel that you can do either or don't want to go into each one, then have a combined drip, which we'll talk about here shortly, that speaks to both. But ideally, in terms of how to be more effective, have your avatar specifically for buyers, have your avatar specifically for sellers, because that's going to actually provide impact, or you're going to have a better impact and be more effective with your messages that go out. Simply because you focus on buyers doesn't mean you're not going to take a listing. Same way with listings. Simply because you target listings doesn't mean a buyer is not going to benefit from your services unless you strategically in your business decision has been not to work with buyers, then you do the referral. So simply because you're focusing on one does not mean that you're negating the other. It just means that you're focusing on one, right? But now let's talk about the tactical component of it. A lot of you mentioned that you're doing email blast, and that's fantastic. That's a very effective way to reach the masses, but it's not the most effective way to communicate and drive adoption, if you will. So email drips. You at bare minimum, your database needs to be on your email drip. So if you don't have a CRM, if you don't have an email autoresponder, if you don't have a way to communicate to the masses, outside of your normal email, then I ask that you go ahead and get something at this point. It's the most simple, it's the most basic. You can get a quality product out there for 15 to 20 bucks, depending on how many contacts you have per month, right? So
I got a quick question.
Sure.
Do you have a preferred, I've heard rumors that you're not supposed to really do your drips directly from your CRM, that you're supposed to use a second, a third party service. And if you agree, do you have a preferred service? It doesn't necessarily need to be free, but that you would suggest I go to, because that's what I want to transition from.
I like it. Great question. ActiveCampaign is my preferred. Aweber is what I have. Now, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, because that would be very hypocrite. If I were to restart my business and not have tens of thousands of emails and my flow is already established, I would be with ActiveCampaign. So the reason that I want to get to ActiveCampaign, that's going to be more next year when I redesign everything, is because it has some flows, if this then that, so much easier to use. So full bias aside, ActiveCampaign is my preferable one. Aweber is the one that I have right now. So if I could redo it, it would be ActiveCampaign.
And is that scalable? Or I'm assuming it's scalable. They want to offer a product that someone can start off with not that many, or because I don't know if I just want to just dump every email lead I have into it. I'd like to target, my direct people that I know are already opening.
Well, you'll need to migrate out of what are you using right now?
I just have a stock CRM from my REW website, Real Estate Masters website.
Okay. So you'll need to tag them. It's the most painful part, but you'll need to tag your contacts. So you're going to have your VIP list. So people that you're actively, your VIP list are those of your pretty much your sales team, if you will, people that become your sales team because they bring you so much business. Those are the people that you treat royally. And then you have your sphere. So everyone does this. You get your list of 100 people that you know, that they know you. So you have your acquaintances. So past coworkers, school friends, whatever. So that's your sphere of influence. And then you have your now business, people that you're looking to transact in the immediate future. So we're talking about 90 days or so. And then you have your long-term nurture. So those are the four that I recommend: your VIP, your sphere of influence, your now business, and later business. So tag them accordingly and then migrate them in. So I would migrate every single one in one fell swoop and have and start from there as opposed to trickling them in, because then you're going to confuse yourself. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm sorry, will you just remind me of the name again?
ActiveCampaign.
ActiveCampaign. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
it's very scalable. Right, the reason I want you to go ahead and segment them out now is to allow some creative flows in the future. We won't talk about that today, but it gives you that liberty of not having to come back and do this again. And you know that there's a certain email or a certain message that you can get away with sending to those people that are in your sphere of influence that you wouldn't be able to do to a completely cold nurture or a cold lead that you've never communicated to in the past.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great question. So email drips, that's just the base. If you're not sending emails to your nurture, then you're behind. There's just no other way of saying it at this point. I get no benefit in sugarcoating it to you. Text has a phenomenal open rate. Now, text systems, text drip campaigns, that does cost a little bit more. So you could use softwares like Textedly, so Textedly. Textedly is the one that we personally use here. Some of you actually got that notification today to be on. There's some CRMs out there that do allow text messaging, that text function. So depending on what your budget is, you're going to want to research that. But texting is a way to reach the masses. Now, with texting, I don't suggest you blast everybody. You have to be a little bit more mindful of that. Simple text that you can get away with sending, whether you send them manually or through an automated way, is your holiday texting. Happy 4th of July, Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving, Happy New Year's. enjoy Memorial Day, enjoy Labor Day, whatever it ends up being, so you can get away with sending those messages because it's expected, right? So that's just the base. So I'm giving you different strategies for each medium. But from a texting perspective, that's expected. It's not going to come out of the blue. If you're looking for an opportunity to jump into text marketing outside of just ripping off the Band-Aid, a great way to start that text communication back and forth is during a holiday. I know we just came out of Labor Day, so you might have missed Labor Day, but the next, I don't know what the next one is. I don't consider Halloween a holiday, but I don't know, whatever holiday comes up next. But
I do Halloween.
I know technically, but it's not one that I enjoy much. Veterans Day, hey, that's what's up. Eric the Nuke Hudson coming in.
I will tell you, I did get feedback from a few people about Valentine's Day. That it's probably a good idea not to send any mass text to anybody on Valentine's Day, because you never know. It might be a trigger day for them, you know?
Fair enough. Avoid the landmines. I like that. So text drips. So we're talking about, let's do a quick reset. We're talking about that long-term nurture. We're talking about providing value first. So after that text happens, that intro text happens, then provide information that you would find valuable if you received it. That's the easiest way that I can say that from a text perspective. Understand that they get some ridiculously high open rates as opposed to email. With that being said, we're not out there spamming people. With that being said, there's ways that you can get blocked on text and you lose that avenue forever. So don't abuse it. Provide something that can actually be meaningful for the people that are in your list. That's why it's important to segment them, as we were talking about earlier with Jeremiah. There's certain things that you can message your sphere of influence. There's certain messages that you can send your VIP that you can't get away with sending to your cold nurtures that you've never spoke to before, right? So let's just be mindful of the text specifically, because that's a highway that we never want to, that's a bridge, that's a better analogy. That's a bridge that we never want to burn. Other ways to nurture. Not everyone's going to be able to do this because of a financial constraint, but we're talking events. You can throw out events. You can do pop buys. That requires a bit more time, and sometimes it involves a budget. So dropping by to people's homes, depending on how comfortable you feel about that, and then coffee over Zoom or coffee in person. So the big thing that I do is, personally, I have coffee over Zoom with my VIPs once a week. That means I just select somebody on my VIP list. Hey, are you open to coffee over Zoom next week? I'd like to share a few things with you. Depending on the relationship of that nature, whether it's a real estate agent, whether it's a brokerage, whether it's another real estate coach, whether it's one of my constant referrals, whether it's whoever, every single week I make it a point to have a coffee over Zoom. That way I don't have to go and physically pay for $10 worth of Starbucks and the time, right? So for me, I'm very protective of my time. Coffee over Zoom, log in here, log out, and you're on your way. So it's a great way to touch your people pretty regularly in a very non-threatening way, in a way that people are more likely to take up coffee over Zoom as opposed to coffee and going out of their way away from their family to meet with you for whatever you may be talking about. Right. So just giving you different ways to do that. And the last one I want to cover here before we get into our open forum is paid ads. So most of you already know, well, I shouldn't make that assumption. With paid ads, what I like to do is there's two types of lists that you do. Let's stick to Facebook right now, because not everyone's going to have the Google ads open to them. You can retarget on paid ads. You can retarget with Facebook ads. You can upload your custom database into Facebook and create what's called a custom list. You'll need the email or the phone number. Ideally, you'll have both, email or phone number, and then name, city, state, zip, all that stuff if you have it. But most important are those two things. If you have the email, great. If you have the phone number, great. If you have both of those for the person that you're trying to communicate with, even better. So the paid ad, so the Facebook ad retargeting strategy that you'll want to deploy the 4th through the 6th of every single month. We're not talking about running ads forever and ever and infinite. We're talking about running a retargeting campaign from the 4th of the month to the 6th of the month. So 4th, 5th, and 6th, right? So those are the 3 days that you're running your retargeting ad to your people that are in your database. So every single month, at the beginning of the month, let's say the first, you pull your database from your CRM, from your email autoresponder, from wherever you have your contacts, and you upload them into Facebook. Once you upload them into Facebook, then you're able to retarget the people that are found on your on Facebook or Instagram. You can do both. There, you can actually run an ad specifically to those people that Facebook has found or Instagram has found, and that way you can be seen, be known, and retarget the individuals that are already in your network. So not only are they going to get an email from you at some point in time throughout that month, or are they going to get a text at some point throughout? If you're sending them monthly, that's cool. I do suggest that minimum one text a month within reason. So they're going to hear from you throughout the month at some point in time, whether that's an email, that's a text, or an event, or a Zoom by a coffee over Zoom. But now you're being omnipresent by showing up again from a paid ad perspective, right? So that's an opportunity for you to really be everywhere. And the reason that I suggest doing the retargeting the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th is because some of your people, some of your sphere of influence, some of your friends, some of your homies, well, they have rental properties. And it's the 4th when most of the rent is due, past due, if you will. That's the first day that people are late. So that's the biggest frustration for a lot of landlords that, hey, this is the 8th time that they're late with their rent. And it just so happens that you show up in a retargeting ad. So it's very opportune. And this is, I'm not looking to spend too much money on your behalf, if you will, giving you strategies that are so expensive, so time extensive. There's no possibility that you would execute or be able to execute from a resource perspective. Just give you something practical, give you something that is attainable. So for $5 every single day, you're looking at $15 a month of ad spend. You can be everywhere to everyone. Does that make sense? All right. So we talked about email. We talked about text. We talked events, pop buys, coffee over Zoom. We talked about paid ads. That is what I had when it comes to long-term nurture. Provide value first. Provide something that sellers are going to want. Provide something that sellers are going to need. Provide something that people are going to find valuable instead of you calling in an awkward way and asking for the business. I understand that that's the way that we've been taught in many ways, but there's other more creative ways to do it that actually provide growth opportunities for our business, as opposed to getting our emails and contact information blocked every single time we reach out.